This is the Expired Podcast by Macy Bookout and Natalie Gard. This week's case is on Tennessee's longest Amber Alert.
My hair, folks.
That's the number one complaint.
I didn't even brush my hair today.
Good. Well, it looks beautiful.
I never brush it.
Oh my gosh.
It's just always up.
Yeah. But it's down today.
I know.
Congratulations.
You can't touch it.
You can touch it all you want. Screw it. We are going to be talking about this very interesting case. We're the Expired Podcast, Macy Bookout, Natalie Gard. And this case is really interesting because it's the longest Tennessee Amber Alert
that is still active.
Yes, in Tennessee history.
Yeah, it's wild.
It is wild. We've talked to the mother and the daughter of the victims that are involved in this. So how we're going to kind of structure this video, because we do have a very long interview with the person closest to the victims in this case. We're going to kind of go over, their family dynamic, their situation, how they came to be. We're going to go over the day this all happened, the crime scene and the evidence. Then we're going to kind of talk about red flags, maybe some motive, like why we think it may have happened. Then we're going to give you, where you can give tips.
Yeah.
Because this is still ongoing.
Yeah.
There was a tip about a year after the crime that is very significant, and we will talk to the mom in the case after the fact. And, if you know anything about this, 1-800-TBI-FIND, which is Tennessee's
the state FBI branch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been heavily involved in this case really since it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's a lot of evidence for what ultimately happened and what people think happened and what we know did not happen.
Right.
Versus normally in cases we have a lot of evidence on how it happened, what happened, who did it, how we know they did it, all those things. So it's kind of like the other side.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to cover it on the podcast because I'm not sure that we've really covered many cases where we know what didn't happen, we know who did or didn't expire, but we have nothing as far as who did it, how it necessarily went down, and then even afterwards, very little to basically zero leads.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, this is a really odd situation. I have heard stories before of this happening. There was a story in the 1900s or something where there was a house fire and there were 9 kids in the house and 4 of them got out, but 5 of them, their remains weren't found. And then I heard another story more recent where 2 girls were staying the night together and there was a house fire and their parents got out, but the girls didn't, but there was no evidence of them in the home.
Yeah.
Like bone fragments or teeth or hair, anything. And that is very similar to this case. So, let's take you to Unionville, Tennessee. This is about an hour away in Bedford County, and this is September of 2012. There's this family, and it's grandparents raising grandchildren.
Yeah, the mother who we spoke with that you'll hear all of that conversation later in the episode. She had 2 children, and she had struggled with substance abuse, and ultimately her parents, who raised her, ultimately got custody of the children. But once she got help and became sober, she was a very regular part of her kids' lives, very involved. But I think at this time her sobriety was still kind of fresh. And I think, being someone who has a child who has the other co-parent struggles with addiction, I would say for their situation, there is no bitterness or, fight over custody and things like that. It was just the safest, healthiest, best place for the kids to be. And the grandparents were very happy to help support the mom in her sobriety.
Yeah.
And it was a very team thing, raising the children. So she was still very much involved, and still very much trying to stay on her own 2 feet and live a sober life. So, but I do think it's important to note that that's how and why the kids were in the custody of the grandparents.
Right. So
yeah, very interesting.
It's very interesting
dynamic, but also the mom, like, she speaks so highly, but also so emotionally about her love for her parent, not only her parents, but her kids, but especially her dad who raised her, but was her stepdad, but her dad.
Yeah.
So, and you all will understand all of what I'm saying when you hear what she has to say and what she shares.
So the grandparents' names are Leon, he goes by Bubba, and Mollie McLaren. They live in Unionville, Tennessee, and they have custody of their 9-year-old granddaughter, whose name is Chloe, and their 7-year-old grandson, whose name is Christopher Gage. He goes by Gage. His grandfather would regularly call him Buster. They were very close.
Yes, Bubba and Buster.
And so they live, Union County is very rural.
Very small town.
Very, very small town. I think there's like 1,500 in the population there.
That's how many people graduated in my senior class.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
no,
very,
wild.
very small town. They lived out, they had some land. The kids, Chloie and Gage, they loved growing up with their grandparents. Just the stability, but also like all the fun stuff. Like Gage loved to ride the 4-wheeler and
just be out in the grass in the yard.
Out. And Chloe loved animals. They had, some goats, and they had dogs and cat. It was
birds.
It was just a farm house.
Yeah, I always think of like my family, like in small town, just like an hour north of here. It's I feel like it's just like my family. Like everyone lives on the same road. Like you have your own little piece, but the whole family is on the same, at least the same side of the road. So I feel like that's how it was with all of them.
Yeah. So in this farmhouse, it had 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It did have a basement, but the basement was more like a workshop for Bubba. Because he had a farm and, he lived out in the middle of nowhere. He had, kerosene tanks that he would use in the winter to keep animals warm, himself warm. But it was a nice little ranch house, on a couple of acres. It was Bubba and Mollie and their 2 grandchildren.
Yeah, and it had like 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. So, your typical like long
house.
1-story like ranch farm style. And then underneath would have been it was like a full-size basement. So one could think of like a garage, but also, how some people have like sheds or like small buildings if they don't have a basement or an extra garage. It's kind of like everything that you would keep in your shed was in the basement.
So like his tools, things for like his farming equipment, propane tanks, different things like that, were all just kind of stored in this basement. It wasn't regularly, like, people weren't there.
It wasn't lived in.
Yeah.
It wasn't utilized as a living space. It was just a workspace.
A garage, a workspace. People weren't
storage.
There. Yeah, exactly. So, Bubba and Mollie, that's their situation. They're supporting their daughter by taking care of Chloie and Gage. The family, Bubba and Mollie, had them for 4 or 5 years as the mom, Cheryl, went through, just different treatments and rehabs and she's doing great today, and she was doing great at the time this happened. She had just had Chloie and Gage the weekend before. They stayed the night. This all happened in September of 2012. This was a Sunday night. I'm assuming they are probably going to get ready for school the next day. It's late September the 23rd. You know, a typical...
I would imagine it's a Sunday dinner thing.
Yeah. Like, just play out in the yard. I'll call you when it's time to eat.
When the sun starts going down, get in here to eat.
We'll get you a bath and you'll go to bed.
Yes.
And school will be normal.
Yeah.
So Chloie was 9. She was in 4th grade. And Gage was 7. He was in the 2nd grade. They went to the Unionville Elementary School. They were just fine. Normal. Nothing really negative to report on either of them. Now, Gage did have a syndrome. It's called Dandy Walker syndrome. And it kind of affects the motor skills, especially when it comes to, like, speaking. Your fine motor skills. And we'll post, like, you know, a description of Dandy Walker syndrome.
Yeah.
But he was a special needs child. So, the night this all happened, September 23rd, 2012. Grandma and Grandpa are in the house getting ready for the week to come. The kids are out in the yard. A neighbor actually saw them playing on their gator, playing in the grass.
Yeah,
they drove by and saw them.
Doing normal kid stuff in the yard. Yeah.
And that was about 6:30. That was the last time they were ever seen. Is at 6:30. By 9:30, the same night, a 911 call comes in from another neighbor, a different neighbor, saying that the McLaren's house is on fire.
Not just like a part of it. Like the whole house is on fire.
Yeah.
And what's crazy, they lived kind of so far out that when the fire department arrived, there was no fire hydrant available. So they were having to actually bring water in. And that takes a lot of time, especially in a rural community. So I don't know if most people know this, but in a situation where that would be happening, where it's more populated, fire trucks will actually use swimming pools.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Like, or lakes or ponds, any sort of large amount of water that can reach. And it kind of acts as a fire hydrant until they can really get the supply in. So it took a long time for them to be able to get control of the fire, for starters, but then also actually put the fire out. It took a lot longer than it normally would in other places of the country.
Yeah, like if you...
Or even other places of the state.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so
like
rural.
at my house, it would be easy because I live in a big city, and you know, it would be easy for them to hook up to the nearest fire hydrant and get it out. But this was so far out that was impossible.
Yeah.
So by 9:30, police are called, fire department's called, they're heading to the scene, and it is a blaze. There is, I mean, it was so hot they couldn't go in. A lot of times when there's like a house fire and stuff, they will, you know, it's in one part of the house, and they can get to you quickly enough that they can contain that and try and enter the house for rescue.
Somewhere else, and only really kind of where it started is the hottest part, and they can kind of contain that little area so the rest of the house is accessible. The whole house was hot.
Very hot. It got up to 2,000 degrees, the blaze, and by the time they had been able to like get a hold of it and get the fire a little bit under control, the whole town knew.
Yeah.
You know, Cheryl, the mother of Chloie and Gage, her sisters, her friends, people that were friends with Mollie and Bubba were like all coming to the scene, but no, it was so hot that no one could get anywhere close to it.
Yeah. And I believe, was it her aunt that called her, or her sister?
Her sister called her
Yeah.
and woke her up in the middle of the night.
Because she knew, obviously, that the kids
Were there.
And she had, the mom, Cheryl, she had just spoke with them, you know, the night before. And so she goes over there. Obviously, she's like, number one, this is her parents.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, this is her children.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's 4 people, probably the 4 closest people to her.
Mm-hmm.
And there are no answers.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to expect if you show up and there are firefighters and EMTs and just the people that help, and they're not able to answer anything or show anything, or not necessarily that they would have good answers,
Right.
but sometimes just answers at all
Mm-hmm.
kind of are more comforting than just like, wait, so the people that know how to do this and do this like on a daily basis can't do something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would be a terrible feeling.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how you outlive that feeling, you know?
I don't think you do.
Yeah. So they get the fire put out, and then the investigation starts. They are looking for, you know, survivors. They realize that this fire, I mean, it was like a crater of the basement was shown, but nothing else of this house.
Yeah, it had all kind of
Sunken down.
and then fell through the basement, basically.
Right. They did find the bodies of Bubba and Mollie.
One thing I thought that was interesting about that, so I feel like a lot of people do this. Maybe it's a
not,
Southern thing.
Maybe not now, but yes, a lot of people have done this
So,
before.
like, my great-grandparents and probably even my grandparents now don't sleep in the same room. Like, at some point it gets like either somebody snores too loud, or somebody has oxygen, or someone needs a different type of bed, like mattress even, just to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
So it's like they can, you know, stay in the same room or sit out in the living room together, but when it's bedtime, like, they go to their own separate beds. I don't feel like that's unusual.
My aunt and uncle did this. They slept in the same room, but different beds.
Different beds, yeah.
I mean, think about I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
Like, they slept
yeah.
in separate beds.
It most definitely could be like an old school thing, but to me, like, it's not that old school. Because it's like
And it's not
current
that
day.
uncommon.
Yeah,
Like,
it's really not.
if you're snoring, I'm sleeping in a different room. Like, I gotta get my head to sleep.
So, but what's interesting is that they did sleep in, Bubba and Mollie slept in separate rooms. They had their own bedrooms, and they were not necessarily on opposite sides of the house, but they were a good distance away from each other, like 20 25 feet, yeah, away from each other. So, and at the time that this happened, they most definitely, like, everyone would have already been in bed. And when they found some of the remains of them, they were directly next to each other.
In the basement.
Yes. So it was like either their bodies had already been in the basement in
Together.
that position, or they would have had to have been sleeping in the bed that was in Bubba's room.
Yeah.
Because it was like right, if it
Over.
were, when it kind of fell through and sunk, his bedroom was the room directly above where they were found. So, to me, that's interesting. Because they didn't sleep in the same bed. Ever. They literally had their own bedrooms. And not only were they found perfectly beneath his room, but perfectly side by side.
Yeah.
Which, it just doesn't make sense with the facts that we know and that were given by the family. So that's, to me, that's the first, like,
Red flag.
something's weird.
Yeah.
This is weird. It just doesn't add up.
Yeah. In their findings, besides the bodies of Bubba and Mollie, they were able to find the family's pets. They had like a little miniature poodle, really cute. And they also had a cockatoo that are
pretty small birds.
very, very small.
Yeah.
In comparison to
like a parrot.
Or even like a small child. Like they're small.
Yes. They're little.
Ounces worth.
Almost like smaller than a hummingbird even. I believe.
Yeah.
And hummingbirds are pretty small.
So they were able to find and confirm bones from a small poodle and a small bird, but they were never able to find any kind of DNA, any teeth, any bone fragments, any part of Chloie and Gage. They were never able to find them ever in the sifting. I think this was one of the
not smaller than a hummingbird, but definitely smaller than like a dove.
So like a bird, like a pigeon, but smaller than that.
So like width-wise and like thickness, I think doves and pigeons are bigger, whereas the cockatoo is longer but like slimmer. But the longerness is more or less their feathers. Whereas like their bone structure would be very petite.
Yeah.
So I'd say
can find that,
if you could put like two hummingbirds on top of each other, that's about the bone structure that a cockatoo would have.
Yeah.
But then the feathers
make it look bigger.
Yeah. Because they have like that big mohawk.
Yeah.
And the long tail.
Uh-huh.
There.
Yeah.
So that's still very small.
Very small. Very small animals were found. 2 human adult bodies were found. But Chloie at 75 pounds, 4 foot 8 inches, not found. Gage at 50 pounds, 4 foot tall, a second grader, nothing was found.
Yeah.
So a day after all of this findings.
And by nothing, we mean nothing.
Not a tooth.
Nothing.
Not a piece of clothing.
Not a hair. Not bone. Nothing. Zero.
Nothing. After all of that happened, they decide, okay, we need to put an Amber Alert out on these kids because they had done all of the investigating. They actually did infrared from the sky in a helicopter of the surroundings. Like maybe the kids got scared and ran off into the woods.
Yeah, maybe they got out of the house and just were running for help or something.
Yeah. Nothing ever came up.
No. No signs of anything.
Just vanished. These kids just vanished out of thin air.
Mm-hmm.
So, with their investigating, not a lot comes in when it comes to the Amber Alert.
No, and they brought in teams that were, local, statewide, even national, forensic and fire analysis and investigative teams that, are big time players in situations like this.
Yeah.
And still, they could not find a single thing of these children. Mm-hmm. And then I think one of the biggest things for me too were the safes. So Molly had a fireproof safe, and then Bubba had another safe. Basically identical safes, both fireproof.
Mm-hmm. In different parts of the house.
Yes. And Molly, the grandmother, her safe was found.
Mm-hmm.
But it only contained, like photographs, maybe like birth certificates.
Yeah, maybe some jewelry.
Yeah,
makeup was found.
Makeup. I love that so much. Okay,
I'm going to put my Dior foundation.
I'm telling you right now, my great-grandmother most definitely would have... No, she would have had fingernail polish in her safe.
Oh, yeah. Or like perfume.
Sure.
Yeah.
For no freaking doubt about it. Fingernail polish. Possibly perfume, but definitely fingernail polish. But I just love it. Like, it's like, they probably stopped making it and it's her favorite color of lipstick or something. Or blush.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's so cool.
Yeah. But Bubba's safe was nowhere to be found.
Gone.
It could have been burned up in the fire because, like we said, the downstairs, the basement portion was more of a workshop or where he keeps his tools. But there was also tons of propane tanks.
Yeah.
And propane never expires.
Yep.
Unlike gas. So, I had propane in my garage when I was growing up for when it got real cold and you set your propane tape up and you got
You're good.
Instant heat.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was more of a workshop type of area. So his safe was never found.
And his safe contained,
yeah,
like the important stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like financial documents, wills,
yeah, they had
deeds, maybe
updated their will about a year ago.
Social Security information,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that like nothing can happen to it, like because it's almost impossible to get it again. Like the original is the original, and that's all you have, and it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that was in his safe, and nothing about his safe, nothing from his safe. No evidence from someone that's never been to that house. They couldn't tell you that a safe was ever there.
Right.
So, that's not normal.
Yeah.
And only specific people knew about that too.
Right.
Obviously, just close family or in the family.
Yeah, exactly. It was a close-knit, family, a bigger family.
Mm-hmm.
Some were estranged, but some were super close, seeing them every day, if not, every other day.
Yep.
There were a ton of red flags and all of this.
With what showed up and what didn't, what was found and what wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's really nothing else, and I think that's where I'm like,
what in the world happened?
Yes, like, and they couldn't even really determine the cause.
No, they couldn't give a cause of death.
And we're talking like
the cause of the fire.
Yeah, we're talking like FBI status fire investigators.
This isn't years ago.
It doesn't make sense. Like, I hate to say this because it's going to sound harsh, but like the perfect crime.
Yeah.
And who gets away with that in today's world?
It's very rare.
With intelligence and technology and social media. Yeah. Like, no one gets away with anything. Like, how does somebody get away with that?
Yeah.
It's wild.
It is wild.
So, that's kind of where, like, where it ends.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy because it's
not
like
a lot.
Fire just incinerated any kind of evidence in this case. So I did read that this fire got up to about 1,500, 2,000 degrees. Mm-hmm. Now, I also figured out to completely, like, cremate
a body.
Mm-hmm. Incinerate bone. Mm-hmm. Get rid of a human body. It takes about 5,000 degrees, and they were only at 1,500 to 2,000.
Which proves that if those kids were in the house, there would be proof. There would be evidence. Right. There would be remains. Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing.
So the safe is missing. The kids are missing. And from all the tests and investigating, if those things were like in that house,
you would have found them.
Yeah. We wouldn't be doing this on the podcast.
Yeah. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. So the next tip after this fire and investigation happens, it's about a year later in 2013 in the state of Tennessee. There is a tip that comes in. This woman is eating at like a mom and pop diner, and she takes several pictures of this little girl who she thinks could possibly be Chloie. By the time that they get to the right person, they're in the right hands, these people with the child are gone. They've never released that photo, which I thought, like, why wouldn't you release it to get it out there?
And it's like updated, like it's a year later.
Yeah.
How much kids change in a year?
Yeah.
But
it was never released, and still to this day it's not released.
Yeah, and I mean, when we talked to Cheryl, obviously it's ongoing, but like they didn't even, they showed it to her, and you'll hear her say for herself that as a matter of fact is Chloie. Mm-hmm. But they didn't release it to her even.
Yeah.
So, but and then someone else was with her that was like, no, that's definitely Chloie. Was that her husband or her boyfriend?
I don't remember.
It was someone else
Who saw the picture?
Who saw the picture? It was an agent.
Okay.
That had like seen video, like looked at home videos and photos and different things.
Yeah, the TV
and was like, that's
her.
definitely her.
Yeah.
But yeah, they didn't even release it to her, so we can't show you that. But they weren't able to track down who
they paid in cash.
Who the adults that she was with. It was 2 women. Mm-hmm. But
it was in Tennessee, and it was about a year later.
And it wasn't far from
where they would live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's also very interesting.
Yeah.
But we will though post like a photo of the children, and then kind of like the sketch of like what they would look like today.
Their age progression.
Because now they would be 19 and 17.
Yep.
So we will post that because again, this is an ongoing case. These kids are still missing. There is absolutely zero proof that they were expired by this fire. Mm-hmm. And everything leads to that. Now they're still alive and they are somewhere, but no one knows where.
Yeah.
Except for that one tip. So, I'm stressed out.
Give me your opinion. If you looked at this case and you were like, this is what I think happened. I mean, we're not experts, but we're pretty good at sleuthing and
reading people.
Mother's intuition, just having a feeling about it. So what's your feeling?
Knowing that the safe that was Bubba's safe had important documents in it, and that they had an interesting family dynamic as far as it pertains to like their kids, and like, so even my kids, like Bentley obviously has a different father, but like any of Bentley's siblings are not half brothers, stepsisters, like your brothers and sisters. That like that's what you are. So I hate to like put an emphasis on that, but they had quite a few kids, and not everyone had the same mother and or father, but they were all still family. But with that dynamic comes questions of how things can play out, or who kind of inherits certain things based on your blood. And
birth order matters.
Whether or not, even like if there were to be like a draft for the military, like my brother is the last male to carry the last name Bookout, and he has yet to have a son, so he would not be, unless he volunteered legally, that he wouldn't be someone that is picked for the draft.
Right.
Because he's the last one to carry the family name right now.
Right.
If he had a son,
then he would.
It would be different. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that go into family name and who carries it. Being an only child, being the only male, all kinds of things legally. So I do think that inheritance and although for the most part their family dynamic with the whole family was fantastic, with a large family like that and different parts, moving parts, there also comes some bad ugliness that's not that can be more toward the side of evil. And I think greed played a big part. So
see, I kind of thought, just reading about it at first, not really talking to Cheryl or really getting a real good read on the case, I always thought this was planned, but I thought maybe somebody in their family owed money. Somebody in their family was,
in with had the wrong enemy.
Yep.
And the people didn't know that there were kids in there,
or they took the kids and did something with them.
Yeah. That's still a big possibility.
My second theory was the kids ran off and the elements took them.
Yeah.
It was September, so it shouldn't have been too cold in Tennessee, but
you never know.
It's out in the wild.
Yeah. And there are animals. Coyotes.
If they got lost in the woods, I mean, out in the middle, bobcats. There's so many dangerous animals out there. So that was my
Definitely.
second theory, and then my third theory is exactly what you think.
Yeah. I lean more toward, I still think every different avenue you listed is definitely possible, and we'd be silly to not think that those things are all possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like with the nature thing, kids are resilient.
Yeah.
They are resilient, and especially with two of them.
Yeah.
And they're not 5. They're 7 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
That's still very young, very small. But being 2 of them,
Yeah, their chances.
and also having a female and a male,
Mm-hmm.
the chances of them getting somewhere for help or to be found
Mm-hmm.
or whatever is very high.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Kids are smarter, stronger, more resilient than people give them credit for.
Yeah.
So I feel like their chances for nature to kind of take care of them is, to me, not as realistic. But if they were injured in the fire and then escaped, that would also play a role in their chances. So
Mm-hmm.
all of them are still very much possible, and I'm open to kind of all situations and stuff, but I still, the lack of evidence in even how the fire was started
Mm-hmm.
and the damage that the fire did, along with the safe being gone,
Mm-hmm. And then
to me there were other human beings involved in
Yeah.
this.
I completely agree. I think so too. I think the person that we could talk to who knows this case the best is Cheryl.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
let's get to that call, because I know our listeners are like,
What does she have to say?
what does she have to say?
She has to know more than us.
And the mother intuition thing is real.
It's so real.
We have Cheryl Daniel, mom of Chloie and Gage Daniel. We've been talking about this for a while. What info do you have that maybe the public doesn't have?
I believe the public has gotten a lot of information that I do have, but I would like to say and express this: they was not in the house fire. Because I know so many people have the opinion that, they burned up. They did not.
Yep.
They was not in that house fire. So, I ask the public to please keep looking for them.
Right.
Because that's something that I try to get out there for the most, because that is a valuable, information there, because they need to know that.
Right. Exactly. What exactly, in your opinion, what do you think happened?
I believe that someone went in the house over it's my mom and stepdad. I believe that someone went in there, murdered my parents, took my children, and burnt the house down. And I believe it was over money. We know that my parents were murdered, because there's no way anybody would have gotten my children unless they were dead. There's no way. And it was over. I do believe it was over money, greed. The love of money is the root of all evil. That's so true.
Mm-hmm.
I have learned that through all this the hard way, but that is so true.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe it was over, and I believe that's what happened.
Yeah.
And
Was there something like specific? Was it like could it have been the will? Could it have been?
I have she's just asking, do you think it was something specific? Because I read that there was a new will, and I read that a safe was not found. Can you go further into that?
my mom and my dad both had identical safes. They both fireproof. My dad kept the important papers in his, the family knew that. And yes, there was a new will. They had stated that Chloie and Gage was going to get inherited everything. I would have living rights with them, and that we would be taken care of. And that probably played a lot into it too, because there's a law in Tennessee, about the children being the only sole child of the deceased, and they can inherit more, or could possibly take it out if they are the only child of the deceased.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that played a part in it.
Okay. Have you noticed or recognized any red flags that at the time you didn't think were weird or suspicious, but now that 11 years has passed, you are like, wow, that could have been significant?
I have on some things. That's a hard one to answer because I'd have to bring up stuff that I'm probably not allowed to.
Right.
But I've been those things. I have checked into that, and I've, followed up on it stuff, and it's been given to the right people.
Okay. That's good to know.
There's so much going on in shock. I mean, that was just shock for a long time, and then once you step back out of it a little bit and look in, you see a lot of things differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can she go into that further without naming any names or any people?
Can you go into that further without naming anybody or giving a vague answer?
I would just say that there has been people have acted differently.
Okay.
Than what they had before, and I can't really go into that.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yep.
Yeah, we understand totally.
This one part needs to be eliminated.
Yeah.
But we word it another way. But there's been a lot.
Okay, we understand. Do you think that the will had anything to do with it?
I do.
You do.
I believe that has a lot to do with Chloie and Gage going missing.
Yeah.
Because if they're gone and I'm gone, then the will is open.
Yeah.
Right.
To a point, and I believe that did have a lot to do with it. They, like I said, they found my mom safe, but they did not find my dad's, and to this day, they have not found it.
They did find your mom safe.
Yeah, my mom's safe was there, but hers didn't have any significance, anything like that. It was about pictures and stuff like that.
Pictures.
Makeup, once they makeup they're safe, we'll never know, but my mom had makeup there safe.
Oh my gosh.
Honey, they were country people. I could tell you some stories on them you just wouldn't believe it. Real stories, some people was like, that didn't happen, but it did.
Oh goodness.
We'd love to hear
My
that.
dad kept all the important stuff in his safe, and family members knew this.
Yeah.
And there's just stuff that I look back and I see now that only family members can know that it had happened.
Mm-hmm. And do you know why they slept in separate rooms? I heard one report is because your mom was on oxygen and it kept Bubba awake.
She was. They had done that for years because when my mama was snore too much, she'd bring her house down.
Yeah.
I think that was a lot of it too because
all of my grandparents
he said he couldn't sleep with her because she kept him awake all night.
Yeah.
She was very loud.
Yeah, I feel like that's...
We both know people who, like my great aunt and
my great grandparents, they all sleep in separate bedrooms too, for the same reasons.
Yeah,
like it's just like they want to get a better night's sleep. So,
and the older they get, I hear more people doing that.
Yeah. I mean, sleep is important.
Yep.
Can you describe, I know you don't have a physical copy or access to a copy of the picture, but I want you to describe the picture that the TBI showed you when it comes to a year after the fire and a picture of Chloie was supposedly given as a tip.
It was Chloie. We're, between me and there's 3 TBI agents with me, we all was pretty 99.5% sure it was Chloie. She, they was at a mom and pop little restaurant here in Tennessee, and it was February 2013, this picture was sent to them. And she's got her, she's like looking down, and you tell, there's a lady with her, 2 ladies, which we didn't know who it was, but you see in Chloe's face that she's being scolded or told what to do, that she was upset, but she just kind of got her head down, and you see, from the side. The lady never got a front view picture, but from the front, from the side and the back, I knew that was my child. But she was just sitting there. She just
was not with them.
Just her head down, like she wasn't supposed to look up. She wasn't talking. That lady just, the picture we had was just looking at her really harsh, but I have no clue who the woman was.
And Gage wasn't with them?
No.
And you have no idea who the women are?
No, and no clue, no idea. But they followed up on that, TBI did, but there's no way to trace anything. There's no cameras. They pay with cash, no credit card, or nothing. So by the time they could get there, they were gone.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I'd like to express to the public is if you see a child, any child, or you see anything that's out of the ordinary for you, call 911 then.
Yes.
Because by the time it gets to this person leads, they could be gone. Just like they were Chloe.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much out there,
Yeah.
that people need to be aware of.
I'm glad you said that. That's one thing we stress, like, in every episode is, like, if you even have the thought of should I call or should I not call, then you need to call.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
it's better to call and maybe nothing comes of it. Maybe it was just an innocent thing, but it's better to call. So just call.
Yeah.
She's right. She's exactly right, because, I mean, you never know.
You never know.
They can change your appearance or anything, but, it's hard to... It's hard to think about what is out there these kids could go through. I've been studying up on human trafficking and all that. It's just so sad. I have a video that sticks in my head. The task for human trafficking had a task force had rescued some kids. And y'all might have seen the video too, but they had this little boy on there. He's like 2 or 3 years old, and he's beat up, smiling at the camera because he didn't know what was going on. Another boy, he might have been 5 or 6, but they had this little girl, and she looked to be about the same age Chloe was. Chloe was 9 when she went missing. And this agent has her by the hand, taking her out, and she is dressed up in lingerie, high heels, makeup, her hair done. And I just started crying. I was like, my God, what kind of people could do this?
Mm-hmm.
But it's all kinds of walk.
Yeah.
And you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
And I try to express that to people, watch your chick, watch them. Because they could be gone in a flash, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
Oh.
The things are, but
I can't imagine. I mean, I feel like mother's intuition is something more. Macy's a mom. I'm not.
Yes.
So she talks about it a lot, and I'm like, there has to be some kind of magic power that comes with being a mom. You know?
I will say when we were researching and, looking at everything, finding everything, listening, watching, when I think it was in the Unsolved Mysteries,
yes.
you said, you were like, my kids are still alive. I can feel it. And people were like, no, that's just a mother's I'm like, no, as a mom, like that feeling, it's a real thing. So I completely related to that, because it would be a different feeling if the outcome was different for them.
I hope I never feel that feeling, but you're right. But
Yes.
From day one, I kept telling my family, they're alive. I can feel them. them. And, of course, you're like, no, honey, that's, the mother and you want them to be alive. They burned up too, but they could never find their bodies. So I was really freaking out, because the area that it happened in is, there's coyotes, there's all kinds of stuff out there. And I'm thinking, did they get my babies, has something like that happened? But no, they was not in the house fire. They found my mom, my dad, a poodle, a miniature poodle, and a cockatoo bird, but not a morsel of Chloie or Gage.
Yeah. And I think that's what baffles everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they had the best of the best out there searching too.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just, they're out there. It's just where.
Yeah.
And what are they doing with them? Who did they take them to? Who's, I pray that a family has them that wanted children and is loving and take care of them.
Yeah.
But the theory is human trafficking.
Yeah.
And I hope that's not it.
I know. Well, we'll be praying for you. What do you do next? How do you move forward? How do you keep their name alive? Or is there anything going on currently that you can talk about?
Not really. We did have a lead a couple of weeks ago, and I guess they were investigating that, and they'll let me know when they find out something. But the longer it's been, the fewer they come.
Yeah.
But there's still people stepping up saying, hey, I think maybe, this could have been Chloe, da-da-da-da. But nothing of significance has happened. But I do my podcast. I try to. I hold visuals. Every year, September 23rd, 2012, I'll be on the news, Middle Tennessee. I did do a story with your Channel 3 there a couple of years ago, and was supposed to do it last year, but I got sick and couldn't. But I do whatever I can to keep those pictures out there. If you see behind me,
I know. That was the first thing I noticed.
That's when they went missing, and this is their age progression, what they should look like now.
Yeah.
And
Send this to us.
I have them.
it's hard to believe they're 1917.
I know.
Birthday parties, I still hold birthday parties for them. And I did do one last year, but I will this year because Gage will be 18.
And
that's a significant number. But
Yeah.
I try to do that and come up with things and that, just whatever I can. You know, I don't stop.
Yeah.
I'm always online. You know, the ID channel, there's some, ID station's probably tired of me because I'm on put stories all the time on there, like, hey, it's my babies, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep submitting them, and I've gotten true crime, done a podcast, and I've gotten some, public view from all that. But it's sad. In 2012, there was 430,000 children that went missing out of the United States. Now, last year I looked it up, it was 860,000.
Oh.
And I have been blessed. And I'm not blessed by anything, none of this happening, but I have been blessed in Chloie and Gage show too, because their pictures are out there.
Yes.
And I have pushed them to be out there. And, they've been on, of course, when it first happened, they were on Today Show, USA, Nancy Grace, all that.
Mm-hmm.
John Washington's had them on his show.
Yep.
Unsolved Mysteries, they've done the podcast. I mean, I've trying to get them out there, stuff like that. What y'all are doing is I'm so grateful, because it helps.
We're grateful that you were willing to, bring up this trauma in your life just to for the betterment of your children, that it has to be painful.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a heartache for sure. Every morning I wake up, it's the day going to be the day they come home.
Yeah.
And every night it's like, well, not today, maybe tomorrow. And I've done that for 10.5 years.
Yeah.
And I'll continue to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know God's got them and God's got me.
Yeah.
People say, how do you do this? I say, prayer and Prozac. That sounds like prayer and Prozac. But I gave to God a long time ago.
Yeah.
And in His time, it will all be revealed. The dark always comes to light.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
And it will, the truth will come out. And, it's sad that people will go to extremes over hatred, bitterness, jealousy, and greed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I believe all this was about.
Right.
And,
wow.
It's our family is divided. I mean, it's divided.
Yeah.
And that seems sadder, but you can't do anything about that. You can't change people, and you can't. You have to move forward.
Yeah.
It's you don't know how much strength you have. So you're given no choice.
Yeah.
When it comes to your children, there's an unbelievable amount of strength that can come out.
Yes.
And it's been, I sit and think about how I feel. I can imagine how they feel.
Right.
And that really, it's just hard to think about.
If Chloie and Gage were to see this, what would you want to say?
I want to tell them that I love them very much, that I want them home, and I'm so sorry for whatever they've gone through. I'm sorry for what's happened.
Yeah.
But we will never give up on them. We will always keep looking for them. They will never be forgotten.
I have chills.
I do want to say too, just like the mother's intuition, I feel like children have it too. So I do feel like they can feel and know that you're still looking and searching and fighting for them. And I know that can bring them some peace, no matter where they are. Hopefully they're, like you said, with a family that's really taking good care of them. But either way, like they can most definitely feel your energy as well.
I hope they do, and I believe they do, because we had a bond. They were the sweetest children. Gage had the Daniel Walker syndrome, and that controls your motor skills and stuff, and that worries me about him. But Chloe, Chloe was, she was all right. But I believe they can feel. I mean, I believe they know, because they know their mama loves them.
Yeah.
I had issues at the time and everything, but, that's who, could have, should have, didn't.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about that, but, it's about them. It's about bringing them home.
Right.
That's my main concern.
Yeah.
And they're, just I can tell you other stories. People can be so cruel, and then people can be so kind.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just take it with, a grain of salt and go on, but it's hard to sometimes.
Yeah.
But, Chloie and Gage, they are very special. And I have an aunt. I have a few aunts. Bubba was my stepdad when he died in the house fire, but he was my rock. And he was a man. And he loved everybody. And I'm sorry, just him alone, that's
yeah.
He was my rock. That was my hero. He loved me. He didn't have to, but I was his baby. But his sisters, they all support me. They were all such good people. But Mary Esther is the oldest one of them, and she loves Gage. And that's her pick. There's no doubt, you know. She loves Chloe too, but she always got that one that's a little bit special. But he was special, you know. She taught that stuff in school and stuff. But they're like the most kind people, and I'd like for them to be mentioned, you know, in the podcast because they stood beside me, you know, and didn't have to.
Yeah.
But they're right there, and they're. I think Mary Esther's 84. But we have Mary Esther, we have Aunt Kay, and Aunt Cynthia, and then Aunt Cheryl passed away a few years ago. But I call them the Chloie and Gage groupies. You're gonna be little old women coming in. They're 5 foot tall. I think they're short. You know, they're coming in. They're like, hey.
Yeah.
But everything they've ever done, I've done for them. They've been there. I mean, they've supported me, and they supported them beyond measures, and I'm so grateful for them.
That's amazing. You said Mary Esther, Kay.
Okay, Mary Esther, Kay, Cynthia, and Sherry.
Cynthia and Sherry. Okay.
Yeah,
Macy's taking notes for us.
Yeah, she passed away, but she was still there, you know.
Yeah.
They're unbelievable people.
Yeah.
They have hearts, you know, just big hearts.
Yeah.
But my stepdad, he was a very, very special person.
Yeah. Anything else from you?
No, I was just gonna say, I want to make sure I got the date right for when she does like the vigil.
When exactly do you do the visual?
September 23rd.
I'll probably have one. I'll have the birthday party in June, July, whenever it's place booked, and I'll probably do the vigil maybe October.
Okay.
I try to do it a little bit cooler.
Okay.
So, I used to go to the courthouse in Bedford County,
Uh-huh.
and it's old courthouse is really neglected and do it there.
Okay.
So I can let y'all know.
Yeah. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
please
And
let
then
us know.
Anything else?
You know,
like in
maybe
the
September
future, if
23rd,
she
I try
wants
to do it
share
around
anything
that
or wants to
time
get
frame.
something out, to just let us know.
Yeah.
It's just whenever I get book the courthouse to do the stuff and everything else. It's just whenever I get that done.
Yeah. And is there anything else you want out there?
Just
Share-
for people, just keep looking for them. That they are out there. You know, I feel them. I still feel them to this day. That's never go away. You know, they need guidance. But any child, any missing child, if they see it or they think something is wrong, call right then.
Yep.
You know, because I know there's other mothers out there grieving and families, and call right then. Don't hesitate.
Mm-hmm.
But,
And also, even in the future, like down the road, if something comes up or you get information that you think should be shared or want to share, just feel free to reach out to us.
Mm-hmm.
okay,
We will
Thank you.
do everything to share it on the podcast and on social media and stuff.
Mhm.
So whatever we can do to help.
Because y'all doing this, and it goes to the public view, helps so much.
Yeah.
You know, it really does. You know, anything I can do to get their pictures out there, their names, faces, whatever,
Okay.
I'm ready for it.
Okay.
And sometimes it's kind of like, what else can I do?
Yeah.
Like y'all came up. How did y'all hear about them? I mean, that's it. How did y'all?
So we do crimes in the state of Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
We live in Chattanooga. We've lived here our
Yeah.
whole lives. And we just started a podcast in October, and we focus solely on Tennessee crimes.
Cool.
And I
I
just,
live in Tennessee.
you're right, yeah, you're like an hour from us.
Yeah.
So I just looked up Tennessee crimes and made a list. And that's how I found you.
I was kind of wondering because I know that, you know, I thought, of course, when it first happened, I went through Tennessee, but then as time's gone, it's kind of, it's just middle Tennessee where, it's actually from, but
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of wondering.
Yeah.
What town
I
do they?
appreciate that.
What town do they actually live?
Unionville.
Oh, okay. That's a small town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was my family had lived out there for years. I mean, it was like my grandparents lived beside my parents. My cousins rented a trailer from my parents, and I mean, been out there for years. So, you know, for anybody to have gone and done this, they had to know the area pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Well, our prayers and positive vibes are with you. And
Yes.
if there's anything we can do to help, please let us know.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Wow, she is resilient.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I really like her.
I really do too.
She's got good energy.
She does. She's got this
I really
will to.
I really like her more than
You
or
thought?
like I connected to her more than I anticipated that I would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like we really like she's easy to get to know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. She's got good energy.
Yeah.
I like energy.
I like her a lot. So, if you are anyone you know lived in Unionville, Bedford County, the time of 2012, and you know anything, or you've seen the age progression photos of these two, Chloie and Gage, 1-800-TBI-FIND.
Yes, please. Anything. I mean, even if you're like, oh, I shouldn't, this could be nothing. I don't want to waste their time. No.
Like Cheryl
You're
said,
not wasting
call.
anyone's time.
You're not.
It could be the smallest of things. Just call and then let them do their job.
Mm-hmm.
If it turns up nothing, great. At least it was looked into.
Yeah.
If you question whether or not you should call.
Call every time.
Yep. And also, Cheryl mentioned that she'll do birthday parties or like a vigil in September. So we will, in that area, we will make sure that when we get any information or dates on those things that we share them as well. So that if you're in the area or maybe you've actually gone through something similar to this, the more the merrier, just to be supportive and, keep the story growing and keep sharing it so that hopefully there can be some resolve in it.
Mm-hmm. And make sure you're following us on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, because we post a lot of things that, maybe we can't post here, or updates on things. Like there was just a Jason Chin update.
Yes.
So, follow us on all of our social media platforms so that you can just, keep up with it all, because it's a lot with crime, with true crime lovers,
especially open cases too.
I know.
Yeah.
All
right, thanks guys, we'll see you next time.
We're the Expired Podcast.
If you or someone you know lived in Unionville or Bedford County in 2012, please call 1-800-TBI-FIND. These are the latest updated photos, age progression photos of Chloie Leverette and Gage Daniel.